Hi, so in this video I'm going to quickly show you how to dynamically link between After Effects and Premiere, and I'll show you exactly what that means. So you'll see I've got Adobe Premiere open here. I've also got After Effects open as well, just for the demo, so I'm not having to load it up. Okay, so I'm just running both applications at the moment. All right, so what I'm going to do is start off with some footage. So if I go into here, this is from the workflow exercise. I'm only going to just take the clips. I could bring in the graffiti footage, but I don't really need it here. It doesn't matter if you pull it in or not. Anyway, so we're going to pretend we're doing a standard workflow where we begin by cutting some shots together. So in Premiere, we kind of go over some of the footage, see what we have. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to just quickly cut this together at this point, so I'm not really thinking about it in any way. I think I have to, in the first instance, perhaps just press an overwrite. No, I don't. I have to literally add this to a new comp. Sorry, sequence. I'm getting the words mixed up here. There we go. Add it to a new sequence. After that, I should just be able to drop a few clips in now. So great. So let's just do that. Let's double click the next one. Oh, I think that was the one I was on. Here we go. So I'm going to take another clip, mark it in and out. That'll do. So basically, I'm creating a piece of a timeline which just has a bunch of clips with shots of graffiti, I guess. Right. Sorry, I'm going to just quickly delete that because I didn't realize I had a second shot which was better exposed. That'll do. There we go. We'll take this third shot. Okay, mark it in, mark it out, drop that in. There we go. So we've got some shots there. So we've got something at least. Okay, and graffiti here. So what is dynamic linking and why do we why might we want to use it? So let's have a look at that. So generally what you would do in a workflow is you might have an edit. You sort of usually begin there because you want to start with the footage you're using first. So there's no point working on clips when it comes to any kind of compositing work that aren't going to be seen at the end of the day. So we don't want to spend time fixing clips up or making adjustments or like I said, compositing other elements in and then find that we just decide to cut them out because the compositing side takes a lot of time. And so we really want to spend that time where it matters. So we usually start with an edit first for that reason. That way you can watch the edit. So even if it's supposed to have, say, certain effects on the clip, we can sometimes just add some text over it, just to describe what the effect is, or just imagine it sort of at this point, right? So that we can kind of see it and say, yep, this effect's going to happen there, this other effect is going to happen here. And so we kind of know what we're going to see, but we cut it first. Okay, and that way we know we're only working now, you see, on this clip, which starts at 3:02 and finishes at like 4:12. So it's like just over a second long. Now I'd rather work on compositing just for a second rather than the entire clip length here, which was obviously a lot longer. I think it's, I can't see it there, sorry, without clearing in and out first. So, the total length of this clip was obviously 8 seconds. So I wouldn't want to be working on an 8-second clip doing effects work to find I only use a second of it. So we always cut first. So we've got that. So now the traditional way to work now would be to render this out. And then you've got your video clips and then you could take that into After Effects. Now the thing is After Effects works on a shot by shot basis. So we wouldn't render out the whole timeline because that would be problematic because it would just bring in all of these separate clips in and we don't want those. Perhaps let's say this is our effects shot here. This is the shot with no graffiti on, whereas everything else has graffiti. So it's kind of like the odd one out. So we need to add something in there. So we might then choose to just select this first clip and only render that out. But there are a few issues with that. So firstly, we're using up space on our hard drive because we're rendering this clip, which already exists, really out again. But also we're wasting time as well. Like we're spending time now waiting for this render to take place when we could be spending that time doing something else. Okay, so usually when a machine's rendering it, it's unlikely it's going to be able to do sort of very much else when it comes to any kind of video processing work. It's not to say you can't use other applications, but you'll probably find it will struggle to be able to run those and do a render at the same time. So what a dynamic link can do, okay, is basically, like I said, After Effects and Premiere will talk to each other and dynamically, so at the same time basically. So any changes, once they're talking, if I make some changes to my edit in here, that will automatically be reflected in After Effects, and vice versa. If I start to add effects in After Effects, I'll automatically sort of start to see them as soon as I pop back into Premiere. So without doing any kind of rendering, they're both sharing the same source footage, but they're also sharing a little bit more. They're sharing the information about the edit itself, because when I do link this with After Effects, it will only link this sort of 1 second clip that I've got, not the full 8 seconds. So let's see how we do that. So it's actually generally quite easy. Now, what it will do is when you link, it'll sort of title that as clip 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly show you a second clip as well. Not that I'm going to work on it, but actually let's pretend I am. Okay, so let's pretend we've got a second clip here. We're like, oh, we also need to work on this one too. Okay, so let's put that timeline at the end. Let's drop that clip in. So we've actually got 2 effects clips. Okay, so what I'm going to do is right click this clip here, and just in case you're wondering, I clicked over the icon there, the effects icon, hence it only brings up effects, so just be careful of that. But if I right click anywhere else on the clip, I've got loads of other options. You know, I can adjust its speed, I can sort of create a freeze frame, all those kind of properties and so on. But you see it also has an option called replace with After Effects composition, so that's the one we want to use. If I click that, now it should automatically jump to After Effects, and it's going to ask me to save this project. So obviously I just need a place to sort of save it. I'll just save it into here, and I'll call it Dynamic Link in this case. You probably wouldn't want to call it that. In fact, no, let's not call it that, because let's face it, you probably wouldn't do that. So let's call it, you know, Street Graffiti. Oh goodness, is it? I think it's double F's, isn't it? And 1 T. Oh gosh, if my spelling's incorrect, apologies. But there you go. And I've saved it as that. And so you can see now that is the project name. And you can see it's brought in this first clip, and it's called it Comp 01. So it does number them based on you know, with the shots you send in. So the first shot you send in will be Comp 01. The next one you send in will be Comp 02. Hence why I wanted to show more than one. So let's say I want to send another one in. Now what I would suggest is I can just right click it, replace with After Effects composition, and it will also send that in. Notice, by the way, they go pink when you do that, so you can see which ones are linked because they're pink. Also notice that there isn't well, actually, sorry, I just kind of lost what I was going to say then for a second. But yeah, like I said, notice those ones are pink, and it didn't come up with, sorry, remember now, it didn't come up with the sort of the After Effects thing about saving the project or anything, because we've created the project, so it's just adding into there. Now you can see you've got Compo 2 as well. So you've got Compo 1, Compo 2, and it brings in the clips as well, because obviously it needs to link to them. So it's linking to the original clip, so we can ignore that. But if we do look at this first comp that came through, notice, here we go, there's the time. So it starts at 0 frames, and if I run through, there you go, 1 second and 9 frames, which is exactly what that clip length was. So you can see it's only brought in that section of the clip that's on the timeline, which is brilliant. So that's kind of like I said, the point that when you link it as well, it's only bringing in that clip, but it's linking to that clip from your hard drive. So all I mentioned, yes, it saves you, you know, sort of hard drive space, because you don't have to render it again, saving you time, because I didn't have to render it. It's just linking directly to it. It also means that I'm not having to re-render something out. So I've got a piece of footage that's already been compressed. Okay, because it was a, even though it's a MOV file, I'm trying to remember, oh, it could be ProRes, but even ProRes has some form of, you know, level of compression to it. By bringing it in this way, I'm not applying any further compression either. It's just linking directly to that original clip. So that's great. So, you know, it means that the quality of the clip shouldn't deteriorate. So what I'm going to do with this is just very quickly, so obviously I understand you guys know how to do this part, but I'm going to just track it, okay? And I'm just going to track the motion. Okay, but it shouldn't take long because it's a 1 second clip. And the nice thing with this is that it has a lot of brickwork, which is very, you know, has a very specific type of pattern to it. And so hopefully the tracking should work quite well. Now, whether it does or not, I'm going to just move on from this step, because the point of this video isn't to explain tracking, but to have a look at how the dynamic link or changes I make here will apply in Premiere. So I'm going to bring in that graffiti image, and notice because it was a Photoshop file, so you can bring in Photoshop files into After Effects, it does give me the option. It's saying, okay, do you want to bring it in as merged layers? So if you've got multiple layers, do you want to just merge them all together, or do you want to select a layer? Notice if I click select a layer, my layer names pop up. This is why it's quite important to name your layers in Photoshop as well, because if they're just called layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you might struggle to remember which one you want, right? Oh, which one, yeah, which layer number it was. So always try to name your layers if you can. And you can see in this one, I've only got one layer anyway. So whether I went to choose layer or merged layers, it would make no difference because this is actually only a one layer image. And you do have the option to bring it in as footage or as a composition, by the way, as well. So if you bring in a Photoshop file which has, say, multiple layers, so you can design something with multiple layers, but bring it in as a composition. Remember, composition is this thing here at the bottom, this timeline. It will bring in the Photoshop file where every layer in that composition is the layer from your Photoshop file. So that can be quite handy. But all that talking aside, I'm basically just clicking import and selecting the file. I didn't really change anything, so don't worry about that. And there we go. We've got my graffiti image. I'm going to drop that on top. Okay, I'm going to go back to my original track, and I'm going to just click edit target, and I'm going to select graffiti. Here we go. Here's the little drop down. So I want the graffiti Photoshop file to be what it's applied to, and I'm going to click apply. And then it's going to ask me, do you want to apply to X and Y? And I'm going to say, yes, I do. And although you can see, there you go. So that tracks quite well. There you go. I'm going to scrub through. Brilliant. Yeah. Notice, obviously, it's not a great cutout and it's got some issues on there. What you can do is there's a whole a range of different columns here. If you can't see the one you're looking for, right click in the top columns, go to columns, and there's a whole bunch there. But I've already got the one I want, which is modes or blending modes. And I'm going to change the blending mode from normal, which all it does is takes this image and sticks it on top of the video image. And I'm going to change it to something like multiply, which will basically, based on sort of the values, it will keep the darker elements but lose the lighter elements. And because the red is darker than the white, all the white is sort of generally disappeared. So white becomes 100% transparent, whereas black becomes 100% opaque. But the red, which is generally quite dark, kind of becomes partial. So you can see the brickwork still through it, but it also ends up looking a little darker overall. And what's quite nice about that is, which is what you'd expect. If somebody applied some graffiti onto the brickwork, you still expect to see the brickwork underneath it. So there we go, there's my track and so on. So I've done this shot in After Effects, but if I now jump back to Premiere, okay, I should find that, as you can see, all of that shows up. So anything you do in After Effects will automatically just appear. Oh, what happened there right at the end? Was that just... Oh, that's weird. Just kind of lost it in the last second. Oh, right. Okay. I think it's just, you can see, by the way, it's got these little red lines over it. So what that means is that the software to really be able to play it correctly in real time, it needs to render it out. And you might be like, render like file export? No, not really. Just go to sequence and you can go render effects into out. Okay. And it will just render, or it should render everything on there to be able to play back. I'm not going to do that right now because it might just take a minute or so for it to do that. So I'd rather save the time. I think that's why the effect was disappearing sometimes when it plays, but you can see when I pause it, it is there. So that's great. So you can see how, like I said, you can just go in and sort of make changes and that adjusts. Okay. Now, one thing I would say about this is sometimes when I talk to students, they're not sure always which clips are going to feature effects. Sometimes they're like, you know what, I might apply some additional ones. What I would suggest is when you first set up this project, just send the clips to After Effects that you think you want to apply to. And if you're not sure, just send them all. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with just going through and saying replace with After Effects composition for each clip so that every clip is linked. It'll all appear in After Effects and then they're all listed on there, and you can apply the effects to the ones you want and don't apply it to the ones you don't. Okay, so yeah, if you're not sure, just link them all. I think because what I found is generally when you close this down and you kind of come back to it, it's still linked. But what can happen is when you then, imagine I've closed Premiere down and came back. If I then right click and say replace with After Effects composition, what can happen a lot of times is it will link with After Effects, but it'll create a new After Effects project. So now I've got two separate After Effects projects that I have to load up, one for the original set of clips I had and one for the ones I did on the second time around. And so you don't really want that. You want to have one project which contains all your clips. like we've got here, right? So this is one project in here and it's got 2 shots in there. And that's kind of what you'd want. So if you're not sure, I generally just recommend just link them all right at the very beginning so that process is done. Okay, and if you're going to do that as well, start from the very beginning, because as you can see, it numbered the clips. So this became number 1 now, this is number 2. So if I kind of realize later, I'm like, actually, I want to do this too, this will be number 3, because of the way it kind of works. I think you can probably rename them in After Effects anyway, but a lot of times, if you just start from the beginning and send them across, then everything kind of works well. And just to go to the second one as well, so we'll just quickly go into here and we'll go to effects and presets, and we're just going to brighten it up a little bit. So as we could see, it's a lot darker, and we're going to do that in here. And obviously we don't need to take it to After Effects to do this. We could do it in Premiere, but let's just say we're going to do that. And again, we'll jump back into here, and hopefully that should match up a little bit better now. There you go, to the other clips. It's not as dark. To be fair, the one previously now looks quite dark. Okay, so that's how dynamic linking works. Now, when you're done, at some point, you can then just render this out either directly from here, or you can render it out from After Effects. Now, what I would suggest, and we'll look at this when I'll do a video on creating a video breakdown as well, and we'll have a look at how dynamic linking could help with that a little bit. Generally, what I would do with a project is create multiple timelines. So I'd have a timeline for which just contains my edit, a timeline which contains my dynamically linked files, and then that way, with those 2 versions, you can create a breakdown really easily, because you've got one version of a timeline which has the original shots with no effects on, and you'll have a second version of the exact same timeline with all your effects, and then it's very easy to kind of basically show how you modified the clips, because right now, if I only have this one timeline, it can be a bit of a pain. I'd have to go into After Effects and turn all the effects off in order to see the original clip again. Okay, so I think the other thing about this is have a think about what you're required to submit for your project, and how could you plan for that now early on, so you've got to submit a breakdown. What could you do as part of your planning to make that easier for you later on? Okay, but yeah, hopefully that helped, and feel free to give that a try. Okay, thank you for watching.